Hello, my name is Shane Bassett, and I've got to say that this is an absolute honor. Grew up watching and reading all about my guest, Ida Buttrose. Great to finally meet you, Ida
You too,
Buttrose.
Shane.
Thank you. Um, I first want to just say, back in the 80s, you had a quote, and you might not even remember this. There was a movie release called Flash Gordon. I was a little kid, and you made me go and see it because on the poster was your quote saying how great it was. My parents saw that and then took me to see the film. So I don't know if you remember that movie, Flash Gordon, but you liked it at the time.
Well, my children must have taken me to it because it's not the sort of thing I'd probably go to. So the kids must have said, we've got to go to this.
Oh,
And I
good.
must have
Well,
liked it because
yeah,
otherwise I
well,
wouldn't have said I did.
no, you did. And to this day, I still like it. So there's a bit of trivia. Uh, Before we start talking about dementia and you being an ambassador and part of the chair of Dementia Australia, can I ask you about your longevity? I mean, not just in media and as a personality in general. What has kept you going and the energy levels up for so long?
Well, I think curiosity, I'm very curious about why things happen. I suppose that's my journalistic training.
Yeah,
And you're only here once. And so I think you've got to try and fit as many things as you possibly can into the time allotted to you. And we don't know when that time will end. We don't know anything about all these things. So life takes us on a journey with lots of detours. And in my case, it's offered me lots of opportunities. And I've thought, oh yes, I'd like to be involved in that. Oh, that sounds really interesting. I think I'll have a go.
well, a long time ambassador, patron, Dementia Australia. What got you first involved? Did you have an experience in your own family, or was it just something that you felt very strongly for?
Oh no, my father had vascular dementia, which is the second most common dementia after Alzheimer's disease. So um, about 2008, I became an ambassador for New South Wales Alzheimer's Australia.
Right.
And one thing led to another, and within a couple of years, I'd become the president of Alzheimer's Australia. And it coincided with my being Australian of the Year. And that gave me a terrific platform to talk about dementia right around Australia and to press the case for the need for more investment into medical research. Because at the time, dementia was not heavily funded for research. And, we have to find a way to slow it down, or we have to find a way to cure it. That would be even better. But we need money to do that. And so that was my pitch when I was Australian of the Year. And fortunately, Tony Abbott, who was then the leader of the opposition and then became Prime Minister,
Yeah.
heard what I was saying. And when he became Prime Minister, he gave 200 million over 500,
Wow.
200,000 200 million, sorry, over 5 years for dementia research. That made a big difference. That made a big difference because it attracted a lot of young researchers. And we want them to see that the brain is quite a sexy area on which to be researching.
And well, that was Tony Abbott's era. How has it been since then? Is the funding easier to come by, or do you still rely on donations and so forth?
Both.
Does it still get
Both.
enough funding?
Yes, both. Yes, the government is cognizant of the challenges of
Right.
it's the leading cause of death for women, and it's the second leading cause of death for all Australians. So, and for the first time in Australia, the number of older people now outnumber those under 15. So to find a cure or to find a way to slow down dementia is really an imperative of all researchers in this field.
Isn't old only how you feel? Like it can be an age, but is that a thing still? Like, do you think people still consider themselves old when they're 60, 70? Because some people are lasting longer in life. How do you feel
Well,
about that?
I don't I don't regard myself as old, although I know I'm older.
Yeah,
Um,
good.
but I don't think people think of themselves as old when they get to 60 anymore because, because of better health care and better heart information,
Yeah.
lots of Australians are living way beyond that now. The average age for older people is somewhere in their 80s for both men and women. And, you know, I've got an uncle who just turned 100 this year.
Oh,
Fantastic. And he's fantastic. Yeah, he still walks on the beach every morning, and he's really sharp, cognitively sharp. And, you know, I think, please God, let me be like my Uncle Gerald.
wow, 100 and still walking on the beach, like
Yes,
without a stick or anything?
without a stick. He's so strong on his feet. It's fantastic to watch.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I can see you doing exactly the same thing.
Well, he's really quite exceptional.
Right.
You know, we salute him.
Positive aging is a thing. Do you think there's a lot more awareness now because of social media, say, and media concepts rather than
I,
maybe
I
25 years ago where there was less?
Well, I think there's more awareness. I'd like to see more awareness of the need for physical exercise. I think that's where we let ourselves down. You
Right.
know, if you look at all the research, you'll see that Australians say, yes, of course they should do exercise, but they don't do it. And really, I think the key to longevity is exercise. So, for instance, one of the risk factors for dementia is lack of exercise. The brain needs physical exercise. So everyone knows that the brain needs to be mentally challenged. Yes, it does,
Yeah.
but it needs physical exercise. So you should go walking every day of the week if you can make it, because you will benefit your brain. And I told you my Uncle Joe still walks on the beach. That's he reckons it's the exercise that has kept him as fit and as young as he is. So I would urge Australians to take up more exercise. It's never too late. You can be 70 and you can start exercising. And your bones benefit from exercise, your heart benefits, and your brain benefits. And you know, it's not a difficult thing to do. Walking is a relatively well, it's just the cheapest form of exercise.
Of
You
course.
just
Yeah.
go walking in the park.
Yeah. Do you think that physical exercise is just as important as exercising your brain, say reading a book or writing?
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have one without the other.
And what do you prefer?
Oh, I don't mind.
Reading or
I don't
physical?
mind. I go to the gym. I go to the gym. I do 4 hours of gym training a week. So I do balance and I do strength training. Strength training is really important, and that's where you use weights, and weights are very good for your bones. And of course, I'm challenged all the time with my work, especially
Mm,
as chair of the ABC. But every day is a challenge, believe me.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. And there's no sign of you giving that up, I'm sure.
What the challenges or the ABC?
The retiring. It doesn't look like you're going to retire anytime soon.
No, I don't know that word. It's not in my vocabulary.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. You're very inspirational for all age groups. Let me tell you from my point. Can you tell me a little bit in dementia with Australian? Do you think there's been is it lower the conditions than say in recent years, or is it going higher? The rate of people
Well,
with Alzheimer's.
because there are more people getting older, the
Mm,
caseload is high.
mm,
But we know, I mean, there were more than 400,000 Australians living with dementia. But we
mm,
know from studies overseas that because there's better heart health, that some age groups where we might have expected to see an increase, we're not seeing it. So obviously education does help. And if you look after your heart, it's beneficial for your brain. But at the moment we have some promising drug trials happening in the UK,
okay.
but the drugs have not been approved yet in America, and they're not approved here. And they're not a cure. They for the first time they slow down dementia in the very early stages of a diagnosis, but they have very crucial side effects. So they're not something, and they're very expensive. So, but it's a step forward because we haven't had this a drug that would slow down the progression. So even though it's only for a year, but a year's a long time when you've got dementia.
Oh,
You know,
definitely.
it's offering hope, and I do see the brain as the last great medical frontier. And if we can, if we can work out what makes the brain react the way it does to dementia and other neurodegenerative diseases, we'd be a long way forward for people's health generally.
How do we, I mean, you mentioned the UK, how do we stand with the rest of the world with our own type of research? Are we up there?
Oh, well, there's a lot of global collaboration going on. You know, everybody works together now.
Of course, of course. What kind of foods do you recommend that would help the brain? Obviously, alcohol, too much of that is always been known as a definite no. But food and drink, what do you recommend any that could help?
You don't have to be a teetotal. You're allowed to have a couple of glasses of wine, but, you know, in moderation. So again, you watch your cholesterol, watch your blood pressure, watch your blood sugar. So again, what's good for the heart is good for the brain. So the Mediterranean diet, we're often told, and that's very good. That's very good. It's got a lot of green leafy vegetables. It recommends fish, salmon. These are all very healthy ways. You know, keep the sugar levels down. Don't eat too many cakes and biscuits and so on. But I could sometimes I can talk to people and they say, "Oh yes, that's absolutely right," and then they lean forward and take another biscuit and go munch, 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 munch. And look, I'm guilty of the same thing. I like a biscuit too, and I like ice cream. My fatal undoing, ice cream. But you see, you've just got to do it all in moderation. You've got to do it in moderation. You've really got to say, well, I'm going to be responsible for my health.
Yeah.
I want to live to the best possible age I can, and I want to be cognitively fine, and I want to be physically fine. So I'll take some steps to look after myself.
Do you honestly believe that one day, no matter how far ahead in the future it might be, that we will have a cure for dementia, or an extension of, instead of 1 year, maybe a lot longer than that?
Well, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but yes, I would say yes. I think we have to hope for that. And as I said to you before, just this early drug trial breakthrough where we found a way to slow down the progression of the disease, even only in the first stages of the diagnosis, that is a great step forward, and that is very encouraging, and it will attract more people to research, and that's what we need.
You've never been afraid to say what you think as well. Is that a trait that just started from day one?
Well, I remember my father telling me telling my husband to be that he said, "You're marrying a very independent girl." And I think then that I was only 21 when I got married. So I think I've always been an independent girl, and now I'm an independent woman. And look, if you don't say what you think, what's the point of being here?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I admire that. One of the many things I admire about you. I do believe that things have changed when it comes to female representation in all forms of media over many years. You may have been asked this before, but is the change a good thing? And it's still developing, of course, but have you ever had any hurdles along your way of getting to where you were?
Of course. I mean, we all have hurdles. We have hurdles at work. We have hurdles in our personal lives. You know, there's no way through life without a few hurdles, but I call them obstacles. But I've always looked at obstacles and I think, oh, an obstacle. There has to be a way around it. I'm going to find a way around it, and then I'm going to get around it. So I've tried not to let obstacles stop me. They might have slowed me down for a minute while I've worked out a solution, but I've always been determined to find a way around them.
Are you a creature of habit? Do you have routines that you do absolutely every day, or not so much?
No, a creature of habit. Let me think. Well, I certainly do some exercises first up when I wake up. And in that way, yes, I am a creature of habit, because I just, again, it's, you know, use your body or lose your body. So I'm very religious about doing those exercises. But no, I think I'm prepared to take a chance here and there. And I certainly am prepared to take a risk. I would hope I wasn't a creature of habit. I do like my cup of tea in the morning, and I don't think that will ever change. I do like a coffee later, but I do like to start the day with a cup of tea. That's what I've always done, and I can't see that altering. So in that regard, yes, as far as a cup of tea in the morning, I'm definitely a creature of habit.
Well, you know, I still think it sounds like you're a bit spontaneous at times, and maybe even naughty, doing, you know, a few extra biscuits here and there.
keep people guessing, I always think, Shane.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, a couple more questions. Asher Keddy played you in a Paper Giants miniseries, which was very well received. I've never heard you actually comment on what you thought of her playing yourself. Did you
Oh, I
think it
thought
was
she did.
positive?
No, I thought she did a great job. We had a few meals and get-togethers before the show started.
Right.
And one night we were out at a restaurant, and she was copying all my gestures. You know, I'd say, Astra, and she'd say, yes. I said, stop copying me. She said, I'm not. And I said, yes, you are. You're copying all my gestures. She had them all down pat. And she even walked the way I walk. And no, I thought she did a very good job, really. And, you know, they had some funny scenes in the series, and they had one where I'd fallen over and I was pregnant, very pregnant with my son Ben. And
Right.
I'd fallen over in the corridor, and they had me going into my office and putting my head down on the desk and crying like a maniac. And I said to her, well, I wouldn't do that. She said, I know you wouldn't. She said, what did you do? And I said, oh, well, I sort of caught my breath. I said, because it was a fright. And she said, that's the way I'll play it. See, she understood me. So once you find the actor understands you, then you can trust the actor.
That's very good. And she's so talented. And I thought she did a great job playing you, even though I don't know all your personalities. I believed her in that role. It was great.
Yes, yes. I was very happy with Ash's portrayal. You know, and I was on the set once and I thought, I know that voice. And I thought, oh my God, it's mine.
How do you feel when people might take off you in comedy shows, or like Paul Hogan, for instance, back in the day? You all good with that?
Well, I grew up with three brothers, so I've grown up with being mocked all my life. And so, you know, Paul was just another one. You just think, oh, it's just like another brother, really. That's the sort of thing the boys would have done. No, but you know, it was always in good humor. It was never, never, you know, Paul didn't mock me to be nasty. He just to have a laugh. And he used to say, I just go to kill me. And then he'd proceed on with the portrayal. But I never killed him. I never killed him because he's still here.
Yeah, he certainly is another Aussie icon such as yourself. Do you live by a statement, a mission statement? Do you have a quote that you always think of that keeps you going when things are down?
Well, tomorrow will be better, and it usually is. But my mother brought us up to say that treat people as you would like to be treated. And I think that's a good code. You know, that's a good code for life. Treat people as you would like to be treated.
There's so many sad things happening in the world day after day. Being nice to someone, you don't know what's happened to them, you know, in the last few hours or the last couple of days.
No, you don't. And no one asks to be born in poverty. Nobody asks to have HIV. Nobody asks to have a terminal illness. You know, sometimes you have to put yourself in other people's shoes and realize what they might be going through and spare them a thought. I often think if that were me, I would hope someone would stop to think what it might be like for me and give me a hand if I need one.
I mean, I'm sure you've met just about all our prime ministers in the last, you know, few decades. Have you ever thought about being a prime minister yourself, or maybe an assistant prime minister? Because I think you get voted in immediately.
You're very kind. But look, I've over the years, yes, I have had approaches to go into politics. But a long time ago, when I was in my 30s, my children were quite small, I had a serious approach. And, you know, I said to them, would you guys give a mortgage? No, we didn't. And then they said, you'd have to move. And I said, what move? Yes, move to wherever they wanted me to stand. And that would mean changing my children's schools. And, you know, I thought about it and I thought, I'm not prepared to sacrifice my children for any ambitions that I might have. I didn't have my children to not raise them. So I decided politics wasn't for me. It wasn't my calling. You know, I didn't feel it strongly enough. And I think sometimes you need an independent voice in the community to talk about issues. And I think I've managed to do that. But politics, no, it just didn't grab me.
Okay. I guess that's you know, you were a mum first, and I really do think that is very honourable. Obviously, most mums are a mum first.
Yes. Yeah, and
Yeah.
my children really, they're the best thing I've ever done in my whole life. I mean, I've enjoyed my career, but without my children, it would not have been as good as it has been.
What do you do in your spare time other than just walking or exercise? Movies, reading, writing?
Reading,
Yeah.
a bit of writing. It's very hard to write when you're in a job like chair of the ABC, but I have written books, of course.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then I go to movies, I go to the opera, I go to the ballet, I go to the Sydney Symphony, you know, I like all
Good.
of those things. And I visit my grandchildren.
Well, your guide to etiquette was about 12, 13 years ago now. There's another one due, right?
Well, there's something due. I am talking to a couple of book publishers at the moment.
Okay.
So I might look at doing something next year.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for your time. And just in your final words to wrap up the chat, what can you do? What do you think people can do more to be more aware of dementia and Alzheimer's and contribute maybe?
Well, I've recently taken on the chairmanship of the Centre for Healthy Brain Aging, and there it is. We're back to that brain again, which is a crucial organ, and we have to look after it. And the directors of the Centre for Healthy Brain Aging, Professor Bradati and Professor Sajdev, they are looking for ways to keep people cognitively sharp. Why does the brain decline? What can we do to help it? What else do we need to do? Now, you and I have talked about exercise and diet. Yes, and all of those things are important. But I do think the brain holds the key to future health, not just dementia, but lots of health conditions. And that's why I accepted the role as chair of the advisory committee, because I'm just fascinated by the challenges the brain represents. And, you know, we all need to protect our brains, and we all need to sort of learn as much as we can so that we can enjoy life to the fullest.
Well, I think you accepted the role because, one, it's a great challenge and it's such an interesting thing that we can keep learning on, but you never say no by the looks of things. Anyway.
I used to have a sign. I used to have a sign in my office that said, "Say no." And I'd look at it and I'd be talking to someone and I'd say, "Oh yeah, that sounds really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I would be interested. Thank you. Yes, I will." But see, that's my curiosity. I'm just curious about things. And I just think, you know, if there's something to learn about the brain, I'd like to be involved in it.
Well, if I didn't admire you already after this conversation, I think even more of the world of you. So thank you so much for your time, Ida, and I hope everyone watching and listening really gets the benefit out of our discussion.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed talking to you.